And now we have the lightning talk section of our presentation today, and I'd like to call up on stage the president and the CEO of Ericsson, Mr. Hans Vestberg.
Thank you very much.
There you go.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Great to be here, and thank you, Mr. Oettinger, for having that speech and talking about where digitalization should take us. I would like just to enlighten you a little bit what we see in the whole world and the importance for Europe, of course, when it comes to the digitalization. At Ericsson, we call that the networked society. And think about it like this. It took us 100 years to get 1 billion places connected, households with voice communication. And it roughly took 25 years to get 5 billion mobile subscriptions in the world. That's been a fairly quick technology development. The only thing I can promise you, the next 5 years is going to go so much faster. So whatever we have seen in the history, it's very, very slow when it comes to technology development. In 2021, we expect almost 8 billion mobile broadband subscriptions in the world, 7.8. Then you need to think about that today we have roughly 2.5 to 3 billion people on this earth having access to internet. And that took us roughly 20-25 years as well. The next 5 years, we're going to double that, or even more than double that. And the majority of the people on this earth that are going to get the chance to be connected to internet, they will not have the technology progression that many of you in this room have had. Maybe some of you remember the black and white TV, the color TV, smartphone, PC, laptop, and a smartphone. The majority of the Earth population that the next 5 years will be hooked up to the internet, they will start at the end point with a totally different vision how to use the technology. At the same time, we estimate that 90% of the Earth population by 2021 will have 3G or 4G coverage. Coming back to what the Commissioner Oettinger was saying, we're going to have a digital economy where borders basically are going to come down. Because data flows, they are moving in between countries, and you can actually innovate services and applications wherever you are. And of course, if you have that coverage, you have the mobility, broadband, and cloud, we're going to see Internet of Things. And over the time, we expect some 50 billion connected devices. By 2021, 28 billion connected devices. All in an industry that we think has moved very fast the last 20 years. The only thing we can say, the next 5 years, it's going to be so much faster. And then it comes back to how you're going to utilize that and the differences of it. We feel that, or we say that anything that benefits from being connected will be connected in the future. We call it a network society. And think about it like this. We have had 4 technology revolutions the last 200 years. All of them have 2 phases. The first phase is sort of the installation phase. You install a technology and then you use it for something totally different. So one of the technology revolution was in the minerals area, where basically you pumped up all the water from mines through a very smart and efficient solution. That solution was sort of course doing train and boats over time with an engine that was using steam. So the steam actually came up to pump up water from the mines, but to be honest, in the deployment phase, it became steamboats and steam trains. We changed the world totally. And what we learned from that was, of course, the winners in the first phase, they have a brutally tough time in the second part because they don't innovate on themselves. So think about what Ericsson has done and together with many of my colleagues in industry for 100 years. We have invented networks that you can use for voice. That's what we've done. In the deployment phase, you use those networks for something totally different. But it's not only going for our industry. It goes for any industry. And you go through an inflection point. And I think that if you think about our industry, where I'm a vendor in the telecommunication, We were 15 companies for 10, 12 years ago that can supply a telecommunication network for voice. I claim it's 3 left. That's the inflection point we have gone through. Now we're talking about car industry, music industry. All of them will use mobility, broadband, and cloud to change their business models. They will go through. That's why you come to the CeBIT. You see all the industries are here because they're using that as an enabler for transforming their business. Mobility, broadband, and cloud. Think of how many record labels we have in Europe today compared to 15 years ago. The main reason, digitalization. Mobility, broadband, and cloud again. That's what we call the network society, and that's what we will see in front of us going forward. It's going to impact 3 things. People, you have already a smartphone, so you have already transformed. 85% of all the time you spend on the phone is basically not making a voice call. Basically, you are past the installation phase, and you're deploying your technology in a different way. Now it's industries. Industries, of course, you see it here in Germany and basically any country in the world. They are thinking, how can the industry use this technology to transform? And ultimately, we're going to see the society. And I think one of the most important and relevant decisions they were taking in September last year, that's when the 193 UN members decided for the 17 goals that are behind me that are sustainable development goals. The 17 goals that the world has committed to for 2030. I was part of the process, discussed and debated with industry colleagues, but of course with governments. I was fighting hard for goal number 18. That was mobility, broadband, and cloud, or ICT. As you see, it became 17. But more interesting is that in all 17 goals, ICT play a vital role. If it's education, if it's healthcare, economic growth, climate change, all of them, the technology, mobility, broadband, and cloud will play a very vital role. And as you listen to the Commissioner Oettinger, he talks about all of this as one of the most transformative infrastructures that we have in front of us. And if society cannot use it in a good way, we're going to lose a great opportunity where actually we can have economic growth at the same time as we can do it sustainable. So that's why these 17 goals are so important for any country in the world. But to be honest, it's based also that you have an enabler that is ICT, mobility, broadband, and cloud. So whatever we have seen historically of the usage of infrastructure and all of that, that's been slow compared to what we're going to see. And that's why I'm saying the next 10 to 15 years, this is going to be of essence. And of course, that leads me into 5G. Because 5G is something fairly different from what we have done in our industry before. 2G, 3G, and 4G is very much designed and standardized for consumers. And we have enjoyed that greatly. From the 2G phone that you can make calls and SMS to getting some data plans on 3G, and of course, quite a lot in 4G. 5G is designed for different industries. Not only from consumers. We see use cases in media. We see use cases, as Commissioner Oettinger talked about, in haptic technology, where you can auto-steer things that are very far away because the latency is so low. You see use cases in process industry, of course in transport, with auto-steered cars, etc. And of course, ultimately, consumer will get it. Already now, we can prove 25 gigabit per second in the 5G networks, in the test beds, and we're on a 3rd generation. More important, this time, we need to collaborate with the world. Of course, we collaborate with operators all around the world, in Korea, Japan, US, of course, in Europe and China, in order to get the right insight. But at the same time, we need to work with all the industries that are going to use it, because ultimately, they're going to define which slices we need in a network in order to provide a good 5G experience. And it's very different between an autonomous car that needs very low latency, or let's say a sensor sitting in a very rural area where you don't have any coverage of the power grid, where you need to have a battery lifetime of 10 years. All in all, this is what we call the network society, and we're slightly going into new times where this infrastructure is going to be hugely important for our society, for Europe, for any part of this world. Thank you very much.